January 16th, 2004, Jody Lane is electrocuted by her dog. January 16th, 2013, Matthew Wood is hit by a helicopter while walking to work. June 21st, 2007, Humberto Hernandez is hit in the back of the head with a fire hydrant. February 28th, 2013, a sinkhole opens up under Jeffrey Bush's bed and swallows him alive. October 21st, 1988, Kachi the poodle falls from the sky, hitting one woman and killing two others. Death, the great equalizer, comes for us all, but for some, it comes in truly unexpected ways, through some of the most bizarre events the world has ever seen. These are the most unusual deaths. No, this isn't right. It can't be right. We have to remain reasonable, scientific, remove the improbable, and whatever remains will be the truth. But it's everywhere. There's no escaping it.
What the? Whoa there, buddy. Slow down. No escaping what?
Death! Oh, hi, Grill. Everything's fine. Nothing to worry about. It's just that everything is not fine, and there is absolutely everything to worry about.
What are you talking about? I ain't never seen you like this before.
We must remain vigilant. But even that won't be enough.
Enough for what?
To avoid death. I really want to keep finding more stories to know what to avoid, but...
Sounds like you've been overthinking things. You should really take a break.
A break? No. I need to keep searching and finding more ways people have died. It's all too much. No matter what we do, Grill, there's always more unknown dangers.
Eesh. I guess I gotta be the reasonable one today. Well, bro, maybe you should get out of the house for a little bit and take a walk. Some fresh air and a change of scenery would do you good.
Outside? You mean the place where I could be innocently walking down the street and be hit by a falling poodle?
No. Why would I mean that? And how could I even mean that?
Oh, it could even. And it did. Picture this. It's October 21st, 1988, and you're watching over the neighbor's pet dog while they're away on vacation, playing fetch with him in their apartment, balcony door open, sun shining and fresh air blowing in. The ball bounces away, and Lil Kachi, the Montoya family's poodle, goes to retrieve the ball once again, only this time it bounces out of the living room, through the balcony doors, and doesn't stop. Instead, it rolls under the balcony railing and out of sight. Kachi, enthralled in the game and chasing his natural instinct to fetch that ball, runs full force out of the living room and onto the balcony. But by the time he realizes that the ball is gone, it's too late. Kachi is unable to stop and his little body slips off the edge. Much to your horror, you're unable to do anything to stop your neighbor's beloved Kachi from hurtling down the 13 floors to the busy street below.
No! Kachi! Wait, did you say he fell from the 13th floor? Man, that number really is unlucky.
Now let's change perspectives and imagine you are walking along the busy streets of Buenos Aires, Argentina, shopping with your friend and weaving your way through the crowds. You clutch bags full of your market finds in your hands as your friend stops to take a look at a shop window. She moves out of the way for you to get a better look as well, when suddenly your world goes dark. That's what happened to 75-year-old Miss Maria Fortunata Espina. She was just minding her own business walking down the busy Caballito neighborhood when something came down from the sky and landed right on her head, killing her instantly.
Oh no, don't tell me. It was the dog, wasn't it?
It was. Little Kachi helplessly fell all those stories to his death and took unsuspecting Maria along with him.
Jeez. Rip.
But that wasn't the end of this Rube Goldberg machine of death. I won't ask you to place yourself in a new perspective, but I'm sure you can imagine that the scenes of a lifeless body of a dog sprawled on top of an unmoving woman lying on the ground was growing a large crowd of people who wanted to know what had happened. Well, one of those people was 46-year-old Edith Sola, and she was unfortunate enough to witness the aforementioned events play out before her eyes. From across the street, Edith made a snap decision, whether it be from shock and awe from the scene before her or a desire to run and see if she could help. She stepped out onto the road to cross the street. Sadly, she made one crucial mistake. Edith didn't look both ways. Manuel Alberto Lepore, the driver of bus 15 of line 55, had no time to stop when Edith stepped right in his path. And with that, Edith's life was yet another that was cut short.
She died too? Holy.
Yes, and all from a dog's instinct to chase a ball.
But was there no railing on the balcony or what? How did Kachi fall off of it?
That's a good question, Grill. It seems that there had been recent work done on the balcony. It's unclear whether these repairs were finished or if there was still some kind of makeshift bars covering the opening, leaving the required room to fit the poodle and allow him to fall to his death, taking not 2, but 3 others with him.
Wait, excuse me, 3? You've only talked about 2.
That's right. The newspaper article wrote that an unidentified man who had the misfortune of witnessing Kachi's fall and Maria and Edith's resulting deaths couldn't bear the horror of it all. He was so overcome that he suffered a heart attack on the spot and passed away in an ambulance while en route to the hospital.
No way. How could one little dog cause so much chaos?
It is quite unbelievable, but it's true. It's all true, Grill.
Incorrect information detected. Reports indicate the unidentified man story may have been introduced to attract attention, as the man did not suffer a heart attack from observing the incident, but died elsewhere in town on the same day. In a subsequent interview, the original journalist clarified that all 3 deaths occurred within a few city blocks. However, only the deaths of Marta and Edith were associated with the fallen dog.
Oh, what? So you're telling me some reporter added him in some twisted attempt to get readers? Jeez, newspaper clickbait.
But either way, outside clearly isn't safe if I have to worry about wayward poodles falling from the sky.
Okay, bro, come on. I'm just taking a hunch here, but I don't think that happens all that often. Like, try once in the history of ever.
But once is enough. Don't you see? You have to look at the bigger picture. Yes, there may be only one cause of death by falling poodle, but do you really think that dogs are the only way death can unexpectedly descend upon you? Ha! Think again! On January 16, 2013, traffic was moving as usual in central London as streets and roadways were bustling with people making their morning commute. Nothing seemed unusual or out of place. The weather was not unusual for the time of year, cold temperatures with wet and rainy skies. But what the public going about their day on the busy roads below didn't know was that the weather was causing incredibly poor visibility for those commuting above them as well. Experienced helicopter pilot 50-year-old Pete Barnes was preparing to pick up his passenger, businessman Richard Caring, early that morning when, unbeknownst to him, things were about to take a dangerous turn. Pete was planning to leave from Red Hill Aerodrome, a private airship located just outside Red Hill, Surrey, and land at the public Elstree Airfield just outside of Watford, Hertfordshire, to pick up Richard and head to their destination in Yorkshire from there. But at 7:18 a.m., Richard decided to call Pete and discuss the poor weather in the area. However, Pete figured the weather would clear up earlier than was originally forecasted and was hopeful to still make the flight. Richard asked Pete to allow him to drive to the airfield first in order to assess the situation and not take off until he could report back. Well, at 7:29 a.m., an impatient Pete messaged Richard and said, "I'm coming anyway. We'll land in a field if I have to." Shortly after, at 7:31 a.m., as Richard made his way to the airfield, he could see just how bad the weather was. So he called the pilot again, suggesting that they either postpone or cancel the flight entirely. But Pete told Richard that he had already begun starting his engines and was going to fly regardless.
Come on, what's this guy's deal? Just take the day off.
And, as I'm sure you can guess, seeing as we're talking about it right now, that was the wrong decision to make. At 7:46 a.m., due to the weather, just as Richard had warned, Pete wasn't able to land at Elstree Airfield. So he turned around and began making his way back over London towards his home base, when even that became too difficult. By 7:56 a.m., Pete was talking with air traffic control to ask if he could alter his route and land at the London heliport in Battersea, London. It was not immediately known whether it was clear for him to land at the heliport, so he was asked to hold and hover in the area between Vauxhall and Westminster Bridges until he could be given the go-ahead. Pete's response to air traffic control was, "Lovely, thanks." He then began making his way to the landing site. But what should have been a smooth conclusion to the morning's travels quickly turned into disaster moments later. Pete said a final, "Thanks a lot," to control, but those would be the last words he would ever say. Because at 7:59 a.m., his helicopter struck a construction crane that was situated atop the St. George Wharf Tower in Vauxhall, London.
Oh no.
Also known as Vauxhall Tower, the building sits 594 feet high, a whopping 50 stories. When the structure was finished being constructed in 2014, it was the tallest residential building in the whole of the United Kingdom. But back on January 16, 2013, The tower was still under construction, and there was a crane at the top, sitting nearly 720 feet from ground level. The helicopter collided with an extension of the crane's horizontal working arm, otherwise known as the jib, at 682 feet high. The thing is, there was a notice to airmen, known as a NOTAM, issued to alert aircraft pilots of potential hazards or changes along a flight route or at a specific location that could affect flight safety. So, being as there was one of those in place, and that he would have likely passed by the skyscraper on his way to L Street in the first place, it's unclear whether or not Pete knew of its existence or missed the memo completely. But it didn't help that, for some reason, the helicopter's GPS system was out of date as of May the previous year, and the tower did not show up in its database. However, both eyewitness reports and surveillance footage from the area revealed that thick clouds and mist obscured the tops of both the crane and the tower, making visibility extremely low at the time of the crash. Pedestrians on the scene reported witnessing a massive ball of flames, along with a loud explosion as the helicopter crash-landed into Wandsworth Road after it had collided with the crane. The helicopter, an Augusta A109, was reportedly carrying about half a ton of jet fuel at the time, which promptly ignited upon making contact with the ground. Debris poured down over the area, including the main rotor head, gearbox, and part of one of its 4 rotor blades that all fell into the loading bay of a flower market, striking a delivery van and resulting in a serious leg injury for the driver sitting inside.
Dang. The guy was just going about his workday and helicopter parts fall out of the sky and hurt him? Talk about bad luck.
Well, the driver was among the 12 others who were injured during the crash, including 5 who were taken to the hospital. It must have seemed like the world was ending around them, as pieces of the fiery wreck fell onto the streets and set 2 buildings and the surrounding cars on fire.
Must have looked like something straight out of a Michael Bay movie. We sure there weren't any Decepticons hiding in the fog that made that helicopter crash?
I'm fairly certain, Grill. Though many initially thought that the commotion was due to a terror attack, since it occurred just down the street from the MI6 building that houses the United Kingdom's Secret Intelligence Service headquarters. But it wasn't long before all suspicions of malicious intent were disregarded when the truth that it was simply an accident came to light.
But what happened to Pilot Pete?
Sadly, Pete Barnes, father of 2 and pilot with over 10,000 hours of flight experience under his belt, did not survive the crash.
Oh, no.
But Pete wasn't the only fatality that morning. 39-year-old Matthew Wood from the south of London was walking down Wandsworth Road on his way to work when debris fell on him. He was meant to start work at 9 a.m., but was arriving early at 8 a.m., and standing outside of the entrance about to go in when... However, according to Police Commander Neil Basu, it was something of a miracle that this was not many times worse. The crash happened just 60 feet from Vauxhall train station during the morning rush hour commute. And according to Pete's partner and mother of their 2 children, Rebecca Dixon, it's likely that Pete would have steered the crashing helicopter as much as he could have away from the crowded station. Rebecca said that he would have done everything he could to save the lives of others.
Uh-huh. Well, he could have spared Matthew's life by not needlessly flying in bad weather.
It's awful. You don't have to be doing anything dangerous, but like Matthew here, just arriving early to work and then... His sister, who he was scheduled to walk down the aisle at her wedding later that year, said he was likely listening to music when it happened, so he probably wouldn't have had any idea until it was too late. And it's not just things falling from the sky we have to worry about, but also what's underneath your own 2 or 4 feet.
4?
Yes, on January 16th, 2004, just after 6 p.m., 30-year-old PhD student Jody Lane was on her way home in the East Village of New York City from walking her 2 dogs when chaos erupted out of nowhere. As they were crossing East 11th Street, the dogs randomly became violent, howling, thrashing, and suddenly showing erratic behavior, with one even biting the other on the nose. She was crying, panicked, and was very concerned about her other dog, because he was lying on the pavement spitting blood, noted a passerby. She started calling to those around her for help. Passerbys saw her struggling and thought she had been bitten by one of her dogs as they came over to help, but they soon realized the truth. Ming Chan, a good Samaritan who came to the scene, noted that Jody stepped in the snow and tried to separate her dogs, but the next thing she knew, Jody was lying on the ground, unresponsive. When other people tried to help her, they were shocked to feel electricity rush through their body. And Meg, another pedestrian who came to Jody's aid, said, "Then I realized she had been electrocuted. They were all being electrocuted." A crowd of nearly 20 people gathered at the scene. When police arrived, a female officer had to be taken to hospital following an electrical shock from getting too close, so they quickly warned everyone to stay away and were hesitant to touch Jody themselves. It reportedly wasn't until 25 minutes later that paramedics began attempting to resuscitate Jody, but it was too late. Jody Lane was pronounced deceased when she arrived at Beth Israel Medical Center.
God, that's horrible. Just walking down the streets of New York City, living your best dog mom life 1 minute, and the next you're dead?
And those dogs? Someone on the scene took them to a nearby vet where they were treated for minor injuries, including the bite on one dog's nose and burns and lost toenails on the rear paws of the other.
But bro, how did this even happen in the first place? What electrocuted them?
It turns out that as they walked along the snow-covered streets, they unknowingly stepped over a metal utility box cover concealing a partially exposed wire. A report later revealed that the wire had been poorly insulated, wrapped with the wrong tape the previous year. When combined with the wet, snowy conditions, it created a dangerous electrical charge that Jody's furry companions stepped on with unprotected paws. She wouldn't have been affected at first thanks to the protection of her rubber-soled boots, but when she touched the dogs while trying to separate them, she too was overcome by the electricity.
Man, what a freak accident. A true 1 in a million.
Wrong. Jody's passing sparked, pun not intended, Consolidated Edison, the utility company in charge of the metal plate in question, to inspect all of their other equipment throughout the city spanning 550,000 sites. And guess what? A mere 3 weeks into the inspection, they discovered over 280 locations with dangerous stray electrical currents with voltage ranging from low single digits to as high as 140. Any voltage higher than 50 is capable of producing a possibly fatal shock. And this wasn't the first or last time something like this has happened. Back in 1999, a horse pulling a carriage in the vicinity of Park Avenue was electrocuted after stepping on a service box cover, just like Jody and her dogs. And more recently, on the evening of January 31st, 2022, a 4-year-old dog named Lala was being walked down the streets of Brooklyn when she stepped on a metal plate, began crying out in pain as she was electrocuted, had a heart attack, and fell to the ground, seizing. Someone came over and tried to attempt CPR, but sadly, Lala died on the spot. The dog's owner, Lyda Billiker, was left absolutely devastated. It doesn't feel real. She was my best friend, my dog. She's an emotional support animal, so she's highly trained and I take her everywhere. And there are reports of many other dogs being victims of these electrocutions. As you see, no matter where you are outside, death can come out of nowhere from above or below, but also from behind, like this next extremely unsettling story. It was a lovely Thursday evening in June 2007 when 24-year-old Humberto Hernandez was walking down the street in Oakland, California with his wife when the unthinkable happened. After Humberto made stops to buy his wife flowers and cherries, the couple were on their way to a restaurant not far from their home. Suddenly, a terrible noise was heard as chaos erupted behind them. Down the street, about 10 feet from the couple, a Ford Escape suddenly veered onto the sidewalk and drove directly into a fire hydrant. The collision caused a release of water pressure that sent the 200-pound fire hydrant hurtling right for Humberto, hitting him square in the head.
Oh!
He was pronounced dead at the scene.
Man, what are the chances?
Well, Lieutenant Fausto Millara said, "I've seen a lot of accidents, but never anything like this," adding that people have, of course, hit fire hydrants before, but in his 25 years in service, he'd never witnessed a flying hydrant hit a pedestrian. Officer Eddie Bermudez, who investigated the incident, called it a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, and added that if Humberto had been even a single footstep forward or behind where he was in that split second, he would not have gotten hit.
And what about his wife?
Humberto's wife was uninjured. I mean, aside from the psychological trauma from suddenly losing her husband, that is.
And how'd that car just up and hit the thing anyways?
The 45-year-old driver explained to investigators that one of her tires had blown, causing her to swerve, and denied that she was talking on her phone or under any other form of distraction, though her accounts could not be confirmed at the time and I was unable to find any reports on whether she was charged with anything following the incident. It's reported that the hydrant ricocheted off of Humberto, then collided with a fence before eventually stopping a final 20 feet away.
Gosh, poor guy.
Do you see what I've been saying, Grill? Nowhere is safe. Literally, anything can happen at any time, anywhere, that can end your life. How are we supposed to live like this?
All right, fine. Don't go outside then. See if I care. Just stay inside forever where you'll be safe.
Oh, you think we're safe inside? Think again, my friend, because this next story might just be the worst one yet. Imagine for a moment that you're asleep in your bed after finishing a long day's work. Everyone else, including your brother, his wife, and their daughter, are all either asleep in their respective beds as well, or gearing up to hit the hay. Just a typical Thursday night, right?
Well, I'm guessing that since we're...
Wrong! Something is about to happen that will make this the most tragic and horrible, extraordinary night of your family's lives.
Oh, no!
37-year-old Jeffrey Bush was resting in his room on the night of Thursday, February 28, 2013, when, at around 11 o'clock, everything turned to chaos in an instant. Jeff's brother, Jeremy, was in his own bedroom in their shared home in Seffner, Florida, when suddenly a loud crash shattered the silence, followed by Jeff's desperate cries for help echoing from his bedroom. But when Jeremy burst through the door, he found nothing. Not only had Jeff vanished without a trace, but his whole bedroom had been practically ripped out of existence. Everything was gone. My brother's bed, my brother's dresser, my brother's TV, my brother was gone, Jeremy later recalled.
What? How could it all just disappear?
Jeremy couldn't see Jeff, but he could hear his brother's desperate voice as he continued to fall deeper into the rubble. So, without a second thought, Jeremy jumped into the hole to rescue his brother, digging at the dirt. The floor was still giving in, and the dirt was still going down, but I didn't care. A sinkhole had opened up underneath Jeff's bedroom and was in the process of swallowing him whole, but Jeremy was going to do everything he could to save his brother. Meanwhile, Jeremy's wife, Rachel Wicker, called 911 and asked for ambulance and police assistance. The house just fell through, the bedroom floor just collapsed, and my brother-in-law is in there. He's underneath the house, she told the 911 operator. Looking at the outside of the house, built in 1974, you'd have no idea that there was a gaping hole just underneath, growing and reaching towards unknown depths. Inside, Jeremy, who was desperately trying to reach his brother, sadly had to be pulled out of the pit by police when they arrived at the scene as the sinkhole continued to grow more and more unstable, crumbling around them. I couldn't get him out. I tried so hard. I tried everything I could. I could swear I heard him calling out. Jeremy later tearfully explained in an interview while standing in his neighbor's yard. He, Rachel, their 2-year-old daughter, and another individual were able to escape the home. Emergency services called in engineers to help calculate the severity of the situation and just how far back workers needed to stay from the center of it all in order to keep everyone safe. After extensive testing, the sinkhole was found to be approximately 15 feet wide and nearly 20 feet deep. As Hillsborough County Fire Rescue's Urban Search and Rescue Team cautiously positioned listening devices in the hole to assess its stability for a possible rescue, the ground suddenly gave way again, trapping one of the instruments at a depth of 30 feet. And then, in the middle of the night, it collapsed again for a third time.
What? A third time?
Yes, and this time, calculations put the width at 30 feet with an estimated 100-foot depth.
Holy crap!
Jeremy held out for hope for as long as he could. I'm praying that there's an air pocket in there, but I can't see nobody surviving that long in a hole like that. There was too much dirt, too much stuff. He was my brother, man. I loved him. And, sadly, by Friday, March 1st, rescue operations were halted, as the shifting ground within the sinkhole made it clear they were far from being out of danger, and any hopes of rescuing Jeff alive were abandoned, as it was understood that human life wouldn't be sustainable within the collapsing sinkhole. And, as testing continued, investigators were able to determine that there was a significant amount of water under the home, making it clear on Saturday that it was no longer safe to continue searching for Jeff's body at all. Philip Van Banen, an environmental scientist from the University of South Florida, suggested the body likely sank into a 60-foot water-filled cavity beneath the sinkhole, far below what was visible. He warned that attempting a recovery would be extremely hazardous and costly due to the unstable ground, making it nearly impossible. The hole that opened up in his bedroom and swallowed him into the earth would be his final resting place.
But how does something like this even happen?
It's all because of the Sunshine State's porous limestone bedrock. This type of terrain, known as karst, allows groundwater to circulate through and dissolve the rock underneath the surface, creating underground caverns. Sinkholes form when dirt, clay, sand, or anything else becomes too heavy and weakens the surface of these caverns, causing them to collapse.
But how could the ground be fine for so many years and then blammo, half your house is gone? Did Jeff suddenly get into weightlifting and store his equipment in his bedroom, or what?
Good question, Grill. It's not only the weight bearing down on these underground caves that causes the sinkholes, but extreme rainfall and acidic water, or even the opposite, severe spots, can both erode the ground under the surface, leaving no sign to the naked eye until it's too late. According to sinkholemaps.com, over 27,000 sinkholes have been reported throughout 59 counties in Florida alone. And though they do arise in other states like Texas, Alabama, Missouri, Kentucky, Tennessee, and even up in Pennsylvania, Florida gets them more than any other, all thanks to that limestone base just lurking beneath your feet. Surprisingly, they actually occur so frequently that state law mandates home insurance companies offer protection against the possibility of damage due to a sinkhole.
Wow. So wait, what happened to the house anyway?
Well, on Saturday, 2 days after the sinkhole first opened up, the home was condemned, and it was too dangerous for Jeremy and the family to enter the home again at all in order to retrieve any belongings. It was then decided that because the sinkhole remained so unstable, the entire home would need to be demolished. So, Jeremy and his family watched on as crews tore it down piece by piece. Jeff lost forever to the ground underneath. Once the home was cleared away, the hole was filled with 4 truckloads of gravel. Residents of the 2 houses adjacent to Jeremy's were briefly escorted into their homes for 30 minutes to gather belongings before being evacuated for their safety, as authorities worked to determine if their properties were also at risk. And a month later, in April, the homes on either side of the house were condemned and scheduled to be taken down as well, since engineering consultants estimated that repairing the damage they sustained would cost over half of their value. And though I couldn't find any direct details of the damage the homes had as a result of the sinkhole, it's likely that they experienced bowing windows and cracking, crumbling, and even separation within their foundations.
Man, all that destruction.
And it wasn't even the end. Not really. The empty lot with the gravel-filled hole sitting in the middle had come to be surrounded by a double fence for an extra layer of caution to the public since its stability remained in question. And rightfully so, because at 9:30 in the morning on August 19th, 2015, the same hole that claimed the life of Jeffrey Bush 2 years earlier opened up again, this time to a depth of 20 feet. Although no one was injured, the event sparked immediate surveys to assess other potential risk areas, and the hole was refilled that same day. Unfortunately, all prior efforts were still not enough, and the sinkhole opened for a 3rd time on July 10th, 2023.
No way, again?
Again. Residents in the area were told that they weren't in any danger, and 150 tons of a combination of gravel and water was expected to be used to fill the hole for the 3rd time. But Jeremy, who visits the site of his brother's tragic passing any chance he gets, finds it very hard every time the hole reopens. "I live this nightmare every day," Jeremy explained. "Every day, I have a hard time sleeping. It's just rough. Just let him be. His final resting place was that sinkhole. It just keeps opening up, and they keep adding more dirt on top of them. It is sad to me." Just outside the fence surrounding the property where the filled-in sinkhole remains, a plaque lies in memory of Jeff and the homes that were lost at the site. That poor family. No body to bury, no real closure. And Jeremy, his brother who did everything he could to save Jeff and now has to live with the memory of his cries for help. It's just not fair, Grill. And I don't know how I'm going to sleep in my bed at night knowing that at any minute the whole world could cave in around me and I could be lost forever.
Whoa there, just chill out for a minute, okay? We don't even live in Florida, or any of those other states you mentioned. You'll be alright.
No, Grill, don't you understand? It doesn't matter that the odds of a specific unexpected terrible death happening are low. It's the fact that there are so many different unexpected terrible deaths, no matter where you go, that leads me to the conclusion that the probability of dying unexpectedly out of nowhere is actually disturbingly high.
Look, why don't you just take a seat, drink a cup of that coffee you like so much, and take a breath, okay?
But I need to keep researching.
No, you need to take a break.
But...
Bro, listen. If there is nothing you can do to stop an unexpected death from happening, then worrying about it is a useless waste of time. And who knows how much time you have left to waste. So rather than living in fear of death, you gotta live in appreciation of life. Make the most of every moment. Live every day like it could be your last. 'Cause from the sounds of it, there's a chance it could be.
Oh, wow, that's actually quite wise advice, Grill. I think you're right. Any number of things could happen, but we should live as well as we can while we can.
See? There you go. Now where's that coffee? Howard, get this man a cup of coffee. And you, freaks at home, if you want more of your sick and twisted little stories, make sure to give this guy a subscribe, alright? It's the best thing you could do to help him keep making videos. Like this one, about the baseball team made up of the most dangerous criminals. And they were given a deal. Win and be set free. Or lose and be executed. Click the video on your screen to watch now. Do it. Click it.